What's up, guys? We are back with a new review for a brand new line that is finally coming out, and we are also getting a bit of an early look at some advanced samples. So today we're taking a look at the first figure in PremiumDNA's Madballs Wave 1 assortment. We're going to take a look at Hornhead today. First of all, we do have to talk about packaging. This is, no pun intended, kind of a premium format box setup. So we do get a slip cover for this. So it's a window box treatment, but you get a slip cover. So you get this big green sort of mosaic almost of Madballs from over the years, all over the entire thing with the logo on every side, including the top. But of course, it's a slip cover, so you can pop that off. And we've got our actual window box within. So these are, for starters, collector friendly. You can take them all out and put them back in almost as if they weren't even open. They're very easy to replace once you've opened them. There's no zip ties or anything like that holding these guys in. So you've got Hornhead here in the big window. We've got some artwork of his Madball head down in the corner. We've got his nameplate. You've got artwork on one side panel. You've got cross-cell artwork on the other side panel. And then the back of the box gives us our big product shot of the specific character here of Hornhead. Cross-sell for the other figures, as well as showcasing all of the accessories this guy comes with. So I really like the box for these. I really like slip covers in general when it comes to toy packaging, especially when it's collector-friendly stuff too. So all in all, we're off to a good start with a really solid presentation. But let's do it. Let's pull them out and take a look. And here we go. Out of the package, our Madballs Wave 1 Hornhead. So this guy is a bit of a nostalgia trip for me. This whole line is really, that generally does it for me when it comes to toys. But I don't remember Madballs because they were action figures. They were action figures. But I don't think I was even aware of them as figures as a kid. I had the original Madballs that were just balls. They were foam balls that had these crazy, disgusting, gross parts to make them appealing to stupid kids like me. So that's what I remember them as. So it's basically the head, and now they gave them a body. So Madballs have been around for 35-ish years right now, and they've been around for a long time, and they've had a number of different resurgencies and different types of releases, but this is the first time we've gotten anything like this. And this is an interesting release because I'm getting kind of two different areas of thought here. They feel very much like a Super 7 Ultimates figure, but they also have the modular capabilities like Mythic Legions do. These guys are built to be taken apart, and we'll talk more about that here in a bit, but they are able to be taken apart and mixed and matched, so you can kit bash them together if you want to, make him even grosser, or I don't know, give somebody purple fur. So let's get started and see what this guy can do, see how he moves around. He probably moves about how you expect, but it's different because he is such a oddly proportioned thing. So the head is on a ball, but it doesn't, no pun intended, but it doesn't really do a whole lot. You've got a little play up and down, side to side. It's mostly for rotation. Arms out at the shoulders, better than 90 degrees. Rotate all the way around, of course. We've got a single jointed, kind of a deep cut elbow with rotation. You've got hinge and rotation at the wrist, of course. Your torso gives you a little play forward and backward. Not much side to side because he's basically supposed to be like a ball there, so I think the cut would be awkward. And then you've got full rotation there, so it's also your rotating point. Legs are a little bit interesting because, like I said, these guys are built to be taken apart. You can take the legs apart just by popping them out. It's just a peg that goes up into the crotch area. So when he kicks forward, he actually more kicks out than anything. And if you want to kick the leg all the way out, you can go about that far. But when you want to kick forward, you have to kind of twist. And that's also your thigh cut, so to speak. It's basically just twisting at the crotch. He's got a single jointed rotating knee as well. And everything's kind of semi-ratcheted too by the way they feel. And then you've got really good hinge and a rocker on those ankles. Despite these feet being absolutely massive, they do move really well. And there's kind of like a soft ratchet in there is what it feels like. So they kind of move, and again, I'm going to use the comparison, they kind of move like a Super 7 Ultimates figure does, which is to say I'm pretty happy with that because they move well enough. They are very oddly proportioned, very weirdly sized and shaped figures, but I haven't had too many issues getting them into any kind of decent poses. The one area that I kind of wish they had a little bit more play is definitely going to be at the head, but at the same time, they are also meant to be taken apart, so I assume that is going to play some factor into what they are capable of doing when it comes to articulation. Now, of course, all that said about articulation, I'm going to move right into the whole, I'm really interested in these things mostly for the looks aspect of the review, because while I never had the head poppin' figures as a kid, again, I don't really think I even knew they existed at the time, I had the actual Madballs, and it was always that weird, gross out aspect of them that I liked. And I mean, I still like them for that exact reason. So this is basically that, just, expanded upon. So we get this weird, oddly proportioned, squatty little goblin gremlin thing. And I mean, it's just nasty. It's got all those various gross out aspects to it. But this is a really nicely sculpted and really nicely painted figure. It is also really big. It's really chunky, and I've got kind of a thing for really chunky, beefy figures for whatever reason. They just really do it for me. And this is more of that. So there's a lot going on here. There is a ton of detail crammed into, well, it's a pretty big canvas, but there's a lot of detail crammed into this thing. So you've got the fully sculpted fur body, you've got all of this dry brushing all over it. So the figure, of course, is purple, but then there's this sort of gray overtone that sits on top of it that brings out literally every hair on his body. So Hornhead is absolutely covered in paint. He's got all these gashes and wounds on his legs, on his feet, on his arms, the huge one on his stomach with all the sutures and the blood oozing out. He's even got one back here on his little purple little butt cheeks on the back. And it's just a really nasty looking thing. And, that's what I'm nostalgic over for these, is how kind of weird and funky they were. So it's cool to see that kind of more so, I suppose. The hands and feet are really well done. Tons of little wrinkles in the toes and the hands. There's a lot of dry brushing on there as well. So you've got kind of like a white on the underside of the hands, and you've got those really kind of like almost varnished black nails on the fingers, on the toes, and there's just a lot of different textures and color combinations on this guy, and that's a big thing that's going to stand out when you get him in hand, is that there's a lot of texture to him. Everything has texture, so all these little like white spots on him, they're sculpted, they're not just painted, whatever they're supposed to be, little warts or something like that. All the sutures are individually sculpted and painted. The hair, again, the fur is all sculpted on the body, and then has a nice dry brushing over top of it to bring it out. Of course, all that said and done, the body, the arms, this weirdly proportioned little monster looks great. But the focal point is and always will be the head sculpt on, maybe not all of them, because some of them are a little bit crazier, but Hornhead here is all about the head sculpt. And the whole thing is that the heads mimic the actual Madball. So his head is essentially a big ball. And there's just tons of detail crammed into this thing. More of the same nastiness. He's got this big beard. He's got this gaping maw of teeth that has tons of different colors in there. So you've got the black for the void in the mouth, the tongue, the gums, the white on the teeth, but then they're also a little yellowed at the top and bottom. You've got the nose ring, the warts all over there, some really nice paintwork on the eyeball. So you've got kind of this like really big orange and yellow eye with the red little iris in there. And I think it looks fantastic. It's really well done. There's a ton of dry brushing on the head as well. So he's, of course, purple. But then there's this sort of lighter color that is washed over the entirety of the head sculpt just to make him look kind of nasty and worn down. He's got this humongous scar that runs across the back of his head. And then another one here where his hair has not yet regrown. So it's another one of those little things that kind of stands out. Something on the back of the figure that maybe you wouldn't normally expect to see, but it's still back here. More of that hair. And then, of course, you got the titular horn for Hornhead erupting out of his skull. So I'm sure that feels less than pleasant, but he looks fantastic. I think really, outside of the kind of novelty aspect of getting Madballs figures again for, the first time in years, the just sheer amount of detail on these things is really going to draw your eye. No pun intended, I suppose. But he looks fantastic. There's a lot going on here. Tons of detail, excellent sculpt work, lots and lots of paint. And again, it's that weird gross out factor that draws me into the originals, to the original vintage figures. And it's more of that here. It's expanded upon. And they look great. They're weird. They're different. I like this kind of stuff. And I think this is a really solid looking figure. Now, as far as size comparisons go, I've said it a number of times. This is a big figure. It's a chunky figure. It doesn't necessarily equate to it being a tall figure. So he's not super tall, but as you can see, he has a lot of plastic and a lot of girth and a lot of just overall width. There's a lot of plastic here. He's a big figure. big in the sense that he takes up a lot of space. So they are larger than average figures, especially at this size. Of course, it's not, I don't know if we're going to say this is 1/12 scale, because I don't know what that really equates to when it comes to a Madball character, but he is definitely going to fit in sort of with pretty much everything, because with this thing you can sort of just fudge it into whatever you want, right? So we've got a Mythic Legions here on the right. So there's Tibius from the recent All-Stars 4 wave, and we've got Mezco, Conan the Barbarian. So two pretty normal figures in many respects. So 7-inch scale figure, 6-inch scale figure right here for comparison's sake in that regard. And then we'll move Tibius away, and let's put a Marvel Legends in here. So here he is with the zombie Captain America. And we'll do a different Marvel Legends, but something a little bit bigger, sort of out of scale in this regard. Here he is with a Colossus. So you can see Colossus is definitely much taller, but of course Hornhead still has a lot of size on him. And then let's do another 7-inch scale figure, take that away. And we've got our Motu Classics He-Man here for scale comparison that way. So you can see that he's bigger than just about everything, really, when it comes to the overall majority of your standard figures, but he isn't necessarily going to be taller than anything. That's why I think he's going to fit in pretty okay with a lot of stuff. And then for one other interesting comparison, it's another 7-inch scale figure, but he is very much different on his own too, in many ways. He's a bulkier figure than he is tall. So here he is with the Thundercats Ultimates slide. Let's move He-Man away. We'll just have the both of them here. So do one of these. And you can see that he's very much on par with Slide in terms of height, and then very close in overall girth and beefiness. They're still very different figures in terms of their construction and what they're meant to represent, but this might give you the best interpretation of what to expect. They feel very much the same weight. They're very close in height and overall amount of plastic. I think they're very, very, very similar. So if you've got this big boy, you kind of know what to expect when you're getting into the Madballs. And then as far as accessories goes, this is another area where they kind of go for the gross out factor in many, many ways. So to start with, we do get some extra hands. Let's knock out the utilitarian aspect of this first. So we get 3 extra sets of hands with this guy for a total of 8. So we got, of course, fists on him in the box. You get a set. Of course, a set means 2. Set of gripping hands. We get a set of pointing hands. And these all have great sculpt, great paint applications, just like the fists on them. You know, they are purple, but then they have that dry brushing over top to help bring out all of that sculpt. So lots of detail even on these extra hands. And then lastly, you get a set of sort of style pose, slightly gripping hands, but not gripping hands. And then we get all of his weaponry. So the first thing that we get here is this kind of spiked mace flail type weapon. So you've got this green handle with wraps. It's got a real metal chain. So like already there's a ton of detail crammed into this thing. This is not exactly the gross out weapon, but the mace, the flail aspect of it, is like a Madball head on its own. So there's the eye, and then there is a big, like huge grinning mouth of teeth. So it's like one of those little things that this didn't need to be that detailed, but it is. So I'm really excited about this just because there's a lot going on here, from all the paint on the handle to the chain to the actual ball itself. We get what I suppose could be a weapon, but at the same time is food. So you get a turkey leg that, of course, has the bone sticking out of it. A lot of dry brushing on there. You have this big hunk of meat with a bite taken out of it, and then it's covered in bugs. So you've already got this massive turkey leg, which has a ton of paint on it, but then, of course, it's covered in more stuff. It's covered in little beetles, covered in worms all over it, and each of these look really, really good. So there's a lot going on with this. Like this, it's a very busy accessory, but I think it's really cool. A lot of different textures and sort of finishes when it comes to the paint on it too. The turkey leg itself is like a matte, but all the bugs are a little bit of a glossier finish, so they will stand out a little bit more. And then my favorite accessory is this monster thing. So we get this huge spiked club that has a lot of different spikes coming out of it. So you've got just what your normal spikes would be, but then you've got nails, and then you've got like teeth sticking out of it. So this is clearly supposed to be a tooth of some kind. So it's a big green club, tons of spikes with blood covering it, oozing down the front, and a skull sticking through it. So yeah, a lot of detail, a lot of effort went into all of these accessories. 3 weapons, 6 extra hands, just a lot of stuff here. So you've got a lot of options when it comes to decking him out, and then just setting the scene, making some weird stuff with the turkey leg or whatever it is you're going to do. Now we also need to talk about the modularity aspect of these, because this was intended to be like a kit bashing line also. So you could take these guys and break them down and then build them back up with whatever combination of parts you want. And if you want to get crazy and start painting stuff, that's a whole different story. It's very, very much outside of my talent pool, but there is a lot of modularity. You can literally take every single piece of this figure apart. Everything connects just with a peg. So we've got, like the head sits on a ball peg, and then there is another peg that's in the torso that connects to the crotch area. The crotch and the torso are probably the one joint that I would say is a little bit more difficult to pop apart than others, just because it's kind of hard to get a grip on it. Otherwise, it's fine. I kind of had to, at one point I had to pry it apart with like some needle nose pliers just to get a little bit of a wedge in there, but it's very simple. There's not much to it. And then all of the limbs pop on with pegs, and you can also take the elbows, or take them apart at the elbow, take them apart at the hand. Obviously they have swappable hands, so you can do that, but you can take them apart at the thigh, and then you've got just a knee and or a shin and a foot, but you can take the shin out, things of that nature. So every joint can be removed. So if you wanted to, just throw a different set of parts on here and make him look really weird, you can easily do that. Like I said, the torso and the crotch are a little bit difficult. So we've got that. Let's say we want to take a thigh and a leg from a different one. So this is from Splitting Headache. And then you can pop that in right there. And we'll keep an arm. And then we'll add an arm. And then you've got your very different, very weird looking horn head, minus his left arm, minus his right arm and his left shin and foot. My only reservation about this is that I haven't done it a million times, so I don't know if over time you might, maybe loosen things up by popping them in and out a million times, but it's very much an easy thing to do. Like I said, the only area where I might have had any kind of issue was at the crotch area, just because the torso and the crotch really doesn't give you a lot to grip onto when you want to try to pry them apart. So I just popped a wedge in there and they were fine. No issues. Everything else pops apart really easily. I've had no need to apply heat to any of them. Everything just pulls right apart, and then you can put it back together and it stays really well. So while some of them may not be thematically the same, I mean, this is very much a Madballs thing where you can just make something super gross and disgusting and weird just for the sake of making it weird. So yeah, I'm really honestly very happy with this first entry into the line. I can't wait to dig into the rest of these, but there's a lot going on here. It's a new form factor almost, like it feels like a different kind of figure just because of how odd the proportions are on this thing, but at the same time, like I mentioned, it feels very much familiar. It feels kind of like a Super 7 Ultimate. It has the modularity of a Mythic Legions in many ways, but the sculpt, the paint, there's a ton of detail just oozing out of this thing, no pun intended when it comes to all those wounds. And then he has a really solid array of accessories. You've got the extra hands, you've got the crazy weaponry, and if you're into kit bashing, this is another way to do that. That's not necessarily my thing. I don't really even do it with Legions, but it's fun to mix and match these parts and see what kind of disgusting, grotesque monster you can make. So for a first initial impression, very happy. It's a lot of fun. It's again a big nostalgia thing for me, but there's a lot to take in with these guys, and I think when everybody gets their hands on them, they are going to be very happy that they made that order. So that's going to do it for this look at the PremiumDNA Madballs Hornhead. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.